So once again, I'm just going to start and say, hey, we're welcoming Heidi Knecht-Seegers here this morning to talk about how to reduce stress, no matter where you are, what you're dealing with. I've had it this morning, just trying to get this set up, and I thought everything was going. I had it all down, but no. But anyway, but Heidi, I'm so glad that you're here, and because you can help me
be here.
and so. First of all, why don't you just, for those who didn't read my emails or any other introduction for you, why don't you go ahead and just take a minute and tell us a little bit about you?
All right. Well, first of all, nice job this morning working through a really stressful situation. Way to go, because I have to tell you that the technology is some of the biggest stress-producing stuff out there. And I say this as a yogi and as a tech geek. I mean, I'm a bit of a computer geek, and it can be, you love it or you hate it. And sometimes at work it is amazing. And sometimes, like this morning, it's like, what do I push and who do I ask?
Yeah,
and
I don't know.
And in those moments, that's exactly where what it is that I'm teaching, I have to bring that into play. And so how do I handle this crappy situation in the best way I can to take care of myself, because some of this stuff is out of my control. So nice job. And that's a lot of what I'm doing right now. So my story, and thank you for asking. I am based in New York. I have a lifelong history of dance, teaching, performing, choreographing, mentoring people. And a bunch of years ago, my kids were going to a yoga class. It was New Year's Day, and they invited me to come along, and I thought, oh, yoga. I thought yoga was really stupid. I'm sorry, I don't mean to insult anybody, but for me, it felt kind of useless. I was into kinetic motion. I wanted to move. I was a dancer. It felt intimidating to me, and it didn't feel like it was going to really benefit me in any way, because I was already stretching, so what else was there? But I also had wrist pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, and so I thought, not only would I find it useless and boring, but I wouldn't be able to do it, and I was very self-conscious, and I'd be older than everyone, and I didn't want to go, but I tagged along anyway. And what I only see in hindsight now is how that day really changed my life. And I walked into that space, and I like when I was telling you about this before, Mark, I always get emotional when I talk about it, because sorry, it comes up because it so deeply affected me, but it took time for that to sink in. And not only was it a beautiful physical space, which felt like a dance studio to me, which was beautiful, floor to ceiling windows, a giant wooden floor, but the community felt very welcoming. The teacher felt so welcoming, and no one cared what I was doing. It didn't matter. It was just, I was there for myself. And I sat up in the back of the room and made mistakes throughout the entire class because I had no idea of what they were doing, and people assume, well, you dance, so you'll know this. I'm like, no, it's not the same thing. But I fudged my way through, and it was pleasant enough that I tried to go back another time. And I was a little nervous going on my own without my kids, but I did go back, and amazingly, that same teacher was there, and she remembered me and hugged me as soon as I walked in the door. And I felt so at home in some way in this place. Sorry, I do get choked up. And I started going more frequently and just dealing with the modifications that I needed, finding the modifications I needed to find physically, and beginning to realize how beneficial this was to me physically, but also unexpectedly in a very internal part of myself that I don't think I'd ever really connected with. And over time, to make a long story short, it became an integral part of my life. And whenever I was here in New York City, I would start to go on a daily basis. and I was still teaching dance classes upstate. And at some point, that door closed. I got a new administration. They're like, well, we don't need you anymore. And so after decades of teaching dance there, I was like, what am I going to do? What is my identity now? And how do I keep moving? And I suddenly thought, well, I'll do the teacher training for the yoga. Not that I'll be able to teach there, but it will benefit me. And so I ended up going through the training, and just because of the way things were set up, I was able to start teaching at that same studio that had moved me. And it became an integral part of my life, even more so. And not only did I find the benefits to be physical, of course, in flexibility, but also in strength. I found that so many of the aches and pains that I had dissipated, or I became even more body aware, so that I was able to find ways to modify, to minimize, even if I couldn't get rid of some of these things. And again, what really affected me so profoundly that I did not expect was the inner awareness. I don't like to say spirituality because that has all kinds of connotations, but it felt like that to me. The mindfulness, I would say, was something I had never grown up with. I grew up in a house of warriors and lots of stress here.
You in my house? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's part of the tribe thing, right? And everything that's negative that might happen will happen. That was kind of how I was brought up. So to be able to begin to look at things and reframe things in a way that was positive, to try to live more present, to experience my presence as a present to myself, and to be able to share that with my students, it just became a whole world into itself. Does that make any sense?
Yes, and the interesting is that none of that would have happened if you didn't get outside your comfort zone
Exactly.
and go in the first place.
Exactly.
And so maybe I wonder if you kind of talk a little bit more about that, because we're talking about how to release stress.
Oh, yes.
You know, you can't do it by staying in the same place that you are.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that's an interesting observation. And yes, absolutely. That was I was scared and nervous to go that day. And I was so stuck in my head, and I was just sure I would get it wrong, that I would make a fool of myself, that I would fall on my face, whatever it was all in my head. And my 3 kids said, well, we're going. And I think it was my son who said, come on, just come. And I really had to push myself that day to do it. And I remember they were running down the 100th Street and running down Broadway. And I'm like trying to keep up with them alone, physically walking, let alone running. So I'm there with a yoga mat, I think, or I don't even know how that went, just trying to keep up with them, running and then climbing up like 3 flights of stairs, painting, getting up there. And oh, I don't know what I could say this, but oh shit, now I've committed myself. I'm here. And I'm so glad I did it, because again, it's that it was trying to share an experience with my kids, not wanting to feel left out, and also wanting to just give it a try out of curiosity on some level. And had I not been willing to take that, to jump off that cliff,
Right.
without knowing that there was a net there, I had no idea of what was going to catch me, if anything. Was very scary, but look at how it's changed my life. I mean, this is the primary focus now, is helping people overcome stress, because from just working with people with yoga, it developed into more of the mindfulness aspects, and then in general, helping people with their physical pain, which is the physical stress, and their emotional well-being, in terms of helping to reduce stress, especially during the pandemic, which is when I went online with all of this. And who wasn't stressed out during the pandemic? So yeah, and even that going online was also outside my comfort zone, even though I knew that I wanted to connect with people. I didn't want to stop practicing. No one knew at that point in March 2020 what was going to.
When it was going to be safe again, right?
Exactly. And so my son, the same fellow, said to me one day, why don't you go on Zoom? And I'm like, what's Zoom? I mean, this is when this was.
Yeah, right.
And that was also getting outside my box to figure out the technology, because I'm very detail oriented. And for me, I want to understand what I'm doing before I put myself out there to do it, to make sure I know what I'm doing. And eventually that happened, and it just opened up this whole world where I've been able to now help people all around the world, and to meet people like you, Mark. And so thank you for inviting me here to join you and to talk about this.
Well, I think it's such an important topic, and you mentioned, of course, during the pandemic, well, we know that mental health took a beating during the pandemic, and I know from the work that I do with people with substance abuse and dealing with family members who are trying to help their loved ones, that problem just skyrocketed as well. So I think it's really, and it didn't just go back under a rock again as soon as things got a little bit better. So it's really important that we're kind of having this discussion today and talking about, well, how do I kind of take that leap of faith and start practicing some new things and just have some faith that they're going to work. And so I wonder if you can just kind of talk a little bit more. I love the name of your Facebook group, Warriors to Warriors. And
Overcoming Stress, Warriors to Warriors.
Okay, thank you for the full name. And then so that, because that's oftentimes where we are, right? We're worrying about stuff, but how do we change that mindset? And so we'll talk a little bit about the program that you do and some of the skills that you teach that help people make that shift from a worrier to a warrior. I love that concept.
Exactly. Yeah. So these are great questions, Mark. Thank you. And I love how you and I overlap in what we do, and yet we specialize in different things. But so originally, I mean, I think that for me, my path has been evolving throughout this whole time that I've been online working on this, trying to figure out, what am I doing? Initially, it was just trying to teach classes. And then it became my son again. My son's been a big supporter in this. He was saying, well, why don't you try to develop this as a business so that you can help share this with more people? And that became a whole another intimidating path of, well, how do I do that? What does that mean? What does that look like? And again, jumping even further and further outside that box. But each time jumping outside, it would then maybe in some way develop a new wall to the box, because it then became part of my comfort zone. And then I would take like another jump a little bit further, right? As each of these things were developing. So originally when I set this up, I set it up as a yoga group, because I was not just thinking stress as a category, but yoga more specifically. And so it was called Yoga Mastermind Warriors to Warriors. And and I started posting some things and just trying to figure out, well, what do I do? How can I serve people? Because that's really when I'm happiest, is when I'm feeling not just good for myself. And now I feel honestly better physically, mentally, and emotionally than I did a decade ago, which, as my hair turns silver, I'm thinking that's pretty good. But also, just how do I help as many people as possible to feel what I'm feeling? And maybe the skills I've developed and the things I'm doing for myself will help other people. And so it eventually broadened out into stress, overcoming stress, yoga being one of the techniques, but not the whole thing. And so I then changed the name of the group to Overcoming Stress, Warriors to Warriors. That was that transition. And as I've developed the group, I started putting together this program, which is called Overcoming Your Stress. And it became about how to help people overcome physical and emotional stress, meaning pain and stress, because so many of us have that in our lives, whether it be sitting at a computer chair all day long, hunched over a laptop, your neck is hurting, your back is hurting, your shoulders, you're stressed out because of the pressures, all of the things that come at us. How do we handle all of these things? How do they manifest in our bodies? What are the different tools and techniques that people can use to help them overcome their stress? How does posture affect you? And so I started putting together this program, Overcoming Your Stress, and thinking, what are the different things that I can really uniquely offer? Because people can go to YouTube and just probably find anything that they want, honestly. But how can I offer something in Heidi's voice, with my style, with my sense of humor, with my bit of knowledge, that might resonate with people and really, really help them? And so in the program, I have which I'm really just beginning to offer out now. I'm kind of in my first, I'm going to say my beta version. And I have a few clients that I'm working with. I'm so excited at the results that they're getting. So I have 3 phases in the program. The first is called Overcome Daily Stress. And in that phase, we work on correcting your posture, your sitting posture, because I think that's, so many of us are sitting for way too many hours a day, and the posture is key, and people don't often realize
Right.
how bad it is.
And what signals the posture sends to our brain, which affects how we feel.
Exactly. So much, yes, absolutely. And your emotions affect your posture affects your emotions, all of these things, right? So that's the first thing. And then we also cover just letting go of stress in a general way. Then we deal with burnout. This is a big issue for a lot of people as well. How to recognize it, how to, I would say, defeat it, and how to prevent it. Then the second phase is set your mind at ease. And in that phase, we're mastering different breathing techniques, really specific things that you can do when you're feeling stressed or to prevent stress, whether it's in a subway in rush hour, at work, dealing with a rough family situation, doctor's office, whatever it is.
So can you give us an example of what
Absolutely.
one of those things is? So
I'll give you one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's just, I use vibrational breaths in when I'm teaching. And this is something I learned from the studio that I trained with. And at first I thought it was weird. I was very self-conscious. I didn't want to make the noises. I was just embarrassed. And then when I eventually tried it on, it was like, oh, this actually feels really good. And now I use it all the time. So I will give you an example. And maybe if you feel like joining me, you're welcome to join me, Mark, or anybody else who's watching. So vibrational breathing is a way of trying to unlock the knots inside in some way, to unblock the tension inside by making sounds and creating vibrations that really stir things up. And that may sound a little too woo-woo, but physically I feel it. I'm very skeptical of woo-woo, but I actually feel a difference from this when I do it. And someone described one of these as, she loved the way I taught them how to purr like a cat. So I'll teach you that one.
Okay.
So I would always say it's important to, whether you're sitting or standing, make sure that you are upright and not kind of slouched, because if you're slouched, just think of it in a very concrete way. Your organs are squished, your lungs are squished, your belly is squished. You have no room to inhale all of that beautiful, fresh, clean air, new experience, all of that. So I would say, sit yourself nice and tall, keep the spine erect. And I like to close my eyes when I'm doing this. You can do that or not do that, but I'm going to do that. I'm just going to sit here for a second and get in my breathing mode. So I might instruct people, let's just sit here for a moment. If you want to bring your hands together at heart center, maybe a hand on your heart and a hand on your belly. Maybe just let them rest down on your thighs. And just take a moment to be present with yourself. What does that mean? It means to notice where you are right here and now, not worrying about the past, not jumping ahead into the future, but just being here right now. Let's do some vibrational breaths where we actually make some noise, loosen up some of that tension inside. Let's start by pushing the air out, making an SH sound. Here we go, SH. Shh. Inhale fully and deeply, expanding belly, ribs, and chest as full as you can. Big Buddha belly breath. And then keep your lips pressed together. Make a humming sound. As you exhale, you'll feel this beautiful vibration in your lips, in your cheeks, in your jaw. Here we go. Exhale, HM. Feel how it tickles your insides, moves the energy around, and maybe brings a sense of calm. And then when you're ready, just open your eyes. That's a simple example of something that I have found. Oh, I feel even calmer just doing that one breath. But
And
I
so
do,
some people might get really particular about things. Is there so many that you would recommend that somebody do? Is there a certain time amount?
I would say you do it when you need it.
Okay.
You do it if you're in a class. If you're working with me, I'll invite you to do it at specific times, or I always tell people, edit my class as you like. If there's something you want to add in or subtract, go ahead and do it. It's your class. But if you ever, I always introduce several different types of vibrational breathing, and I'll cue them throughout the time together. But I say, if you feel like you want to use it at any other time, just try it on. Usually no one's listening, especially in this virtual world. And
Right.
even one breath can make a huge difference, Mark.
Uh,
So it's
yes.
not that you need to do a designated number.
Great. Okay. So people
Yeah.
will they'll just know
No,
when
if you're
if
feeling
you're feeling it.
tense,
Yes. Okay.
try this. And that one, if you keep your eyes open, you can do even when you're driving. Just
Okay. Great.
like in a traffic jam, yeah.
Right. And no one knows. Yes.
No one knows. Mute yourself on Zoom, close your mouth. No one knows you're doing it.
Okay. Oh, very, very good. Yeah, I could be in the middle of a meeting and oh, my video went off for a second. Okay. And then you just do it if you need to.
Or just mute your sound. Your
Yeah.
video can stay on. No one
Is that
knows
true?
you're
No
smiling.
one
You're
knows.
happy.
Right. Yeah.
No one
Okay.
knows. So in terms of phase 2, just going back there, we had the breathing, different breathing techniques, also sharpening your focus, and learning how to organize time better, because time management is something that a lot of people don't handle well. Time gets away. You're stuck with all of these things that you need to do and feeling, how do you fit them all in? And then in phase 3, which is called regain your energy, I talk about fatigue and sleeping habits, healthy eating habits, and just growing stronger and more flexible, which incorporates certainly the yoga, which is there throughout the whole program.
Right.
That's a synopsis of my 3
Okay.
phases.
No, great. And so let me just to give people another tip, because sleep is something that I always focus on a lot too, because if I've been having trouble this last week as I'm house sitting a dog in addition to the dog I have. And so the sleep is not happening as well as it should normally. But just for people who are maybe not getting sleep because they're stressed, is there just a couple tips that you could share with us today about how to improve the quality of your sleep?
Yes, sleep can be very elusive. And sometimes, I mean, in all honesty, sometimes your mind will turn on, whether it's because you wake up or you have clanging pipes in the middle of the night when the heat goes on or whatever it is. And however your sleep might be interrupted, sometimes the mind turns on, the monkey mind, where it starts bouncing all around. And even for me, sometimes that's hard to get under control again. But as far as a few really, really helpful tips, these are things that have helped me. And if they've helped me, I believe that they might help you as well. One is the temperature of your room. sleep tends to be better if you keep the temperature a little bit lower. I don't mean Arctic temperatures. Even, I mean, I keep mine at 65 in general when I can control it. But you have to see what works for you. But sleep tends to be better in a cooler environment. Also, for those of us who have technology in our rooms, like a computer in your room, like I do here, there are often a lot of chargers and devices that have little green lights, little red lights, little blue lights that are either blinking or they're just on all the time, showing that they're working. Try to cover those up. Or if you can put them in another room, go ahead and do that. But sometimes you could just take a piece of duct tape or something and put a little piece of duct tape over some of these lights, because those lights will really even come in through your eyelids. If you, Mark, for example, if you close your eyes, even right now, or whoever is watching, close your eyes, and through the skin, through your eyelids, you can see the light filtering in. And so if you can imagine, if you know that that's happening, you can imagine that those lights can be disruptive. So I would make sure that your computer is muted at night if you have your computer on, so that it doesn't start sending out notifications. All of those technology things that you can shut down or hide in some way with lights and sounds. I would definitely keep your phone turned off at night, because otherwise there is the temptation to keep checking for messages or whatever it is that people do. And if possible, get off your screens, a good hour or two before you're trying to wind down. Right. Those are a few things.
Yeah, so have a period of time where you actually do wind down.
Yes.
I certainly keep my my house at 62 at night.
Yeah,
it does get cold. But I agree with you that I do not sleep well when it's warm, and so that makes a big difference. And the light piece, and it reminds me when you said that I've seen studies where they talked about even people who think they're in a dark room, because of just light that just happens to come in, we don't even realize there's a parts of our brain,
exactly,
conscious part that picks up on that, and that disrupts our sleep. So
yes,
I wear a mask at night.
Yeah, I wear earplugs.
Yeah, so to complete for that, and I put my phone in another room.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there isn't a temptation, and you don't have exactly. Emergency stuff coming up that you don't really need to pay attention to.
I mean, I have a printer here, and I think I'm turning it off every night, and ever so often I wake up in the middle of the night. Why am I up? And I look over and there's this dim green light from the side of the room, and I walk over, and sure enough, it wasn't turned off. And at some point it decides to just light up the little LED screen, and it somehow interrupted my sleep. And so I just try to shut it down, just shut it off at night. It does affect.
Okay.
So.
And let me just pick on one other thing that you mentioned. You said about eating. How does eating have anything to do with stress?
Oh,
in just like a minute or so. I know we could talk about that for an entire hour, but
yeah, no, it's okay. I won't go for an hour. You get me so excited you have such great questions, and thank you for these. So on a couple of different levels, I mean, if you look at weight issues, for example, people will stress eat. It will affect their weight. That affects their feelings of self-confidence, their self-image. All of these things fit together. If you have a crappy diet, and you're eating a lot of sugar, a lot of caffeine, there are those energy, where the blood sugar rises up, and there might be a manic kind of feeling, and then it plummets down, and then you feel tired, and oftentimes there can be a feeling of like almost depression that can come along with that, with the blood sugar as it's going through the day like that. Those are just a couple of examples of how eating can affect your emotions. Does that
right? I've listened to people who researchers who talk about how that relative drop of blood sugar after you eat a highly processed meal or one that has a lot of sugar or added sugar in it. And then, so the insulin comes in, it goes, and then it spikes, insulin comes on and it drops. That really quick drop makes your brain, the old part of our brain, get really anxious, like, oh my gosh, there's not going to be enough food for us.
Yeah.
And so,
Oh, interesting.
so sometimes that just relative drop of blood sugar, when it's really steep after those kind of meals, can make us feel anxious.
Yeah. And there's also the stress eating where you're feeling stressed. Oh my God, I need to go and eat a cookie, or oh my God, I need to, right?
Which is like a drug. So it makes you feel good in the moment, but then there's withdrawal.
Exactly. And so I'll just give you one quick thing on the stress eating thing. And this is just one thing that I do, because I have my anxiety and I do my breathing and I find things that help. And sometimes when I'm anxious, I will go and nosh, and I keep a bag of baby carrots. So I need to just kind of do something, but that helps me.
Okay, so having some healthy things to eat.
Exactly.
Double stuffed Oreos.
When you're going to go snack, at least if you know you're going to do it, have
you got to have the right stuff in your house. Well, a lot of really good tips, Heidi. Now, so if someone is interested in finding out more or doing your group, how do they connect with you?
Okay, well, thank you so much for asking. And again, thank you so much for taking this time to chat with me, which is such an honor and a pleasure. And it's such a humbling joy for me to be able to offer this program to people, because these are the things that have helped me. And these are the things that I've been doing with people for so many years. And now I'm really pulling it together in this program, which is called Overcoming Your Stress. So a couple of different things people can do. If they want to check it out, you can certainly check out my website, which is overcomingyourstress.com. You'll see 3 little videos there, like method videos, at least as the time of this interview. That's what I have there at the moment. It talks about these 3 phases. So you can see sort of what I'm doing. There's a way to contact me through that website. I believe that, Mark, if hopefully
I'll post the website.
You can put the website, you can put my name. So if someone in Facebook wants to send me a DM, they have any questions, they can DM me directly, and definitely let me know that you came through this interview through Mark, because that will be lovely. And also, of course, you should join my group and ask questions. I'm there to serve people and to help people in any way that I can, whether it's about yoga, you have a question, or whatever it is, any aspect of physical and or emotional stress, let me be your resource. So Mark, if you could help them find my group, Overcoming Stress, Warriors to Warriors, with a little heart in the middle. That's the one. You know you're in the right place. Those are the best ways, through my Facebook group, DM me directly, or through the website, and we can hop on a call, and free call, and just see if this is something that resonates with you. And if it's beneficial, great, we'll dig a little deeper. And if you want to work with me, great. And if not, it will have been a pleasure to chat with you anyway.
Wonderful. Well, it has been a pleasure to chat with you, and maybe we can do it again sometime soon. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll end this now, but I will put all that information in the Facebook group with this video, so that people can have that information to find you again. So thank you very much for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful day, Heidi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.